A new node has been started in Holliswood in Queens. Here's how to get involved and what it's all about. How's it going, everybody? This is Radishhead and welcome back to another episode of Upland Analysis. As always, I want to quickly thank my executive level channel supporters, Matrigno, Monopoly Mike and Bad Frog. Thank you so much for your support. This video is intended to be a complete guide for the Holliswood nodes which I've recently set up in Queens. So of course I'm going to start off by saying what actually is a node. A node is where a group of players come together and they've decided that this neighbourhood or this street is worthy of more attention and they develop it with the ultimate objective of, in the shorter term, making the neighbourhood more attractive for people to buy in, and in the longer term, collections will actually be spawned based on the development score of a neighbourhood, and that's influenced by things like number of properties, number of personal residences, amount of outdoor decor, number of meta ventures. That's why the prices have already gone up in Holliswood, because I've already announced that this is going to be my first node, and a lot of people who are enthusiastic about the channel have already jumped in. I wish that I'd bought more properties in Holliswood before announcing the node, but it just goes to show where my loyalties lie. This isn't a pump and dump for me. I only owned 3 properties in Holliswood prior to announcing the node. I've got 9 of them now, so I'm slowly getting up there, but I genuinely am very enthusiastic about the neighbourhood, which leads really nicely into my second point, which is why Holliswood. For me, a big part of it is the location. First of all, it's in New York City. Now, of course, Upland only has so many cities in the game right now, but as more and more cities come out, the one thing which is always going to stay consistent in terms of its demand is going to be New York City. I think people are going to look back on New York City and Queens especially as that golden opportunity to get in on a really amazing city at the ground floor. So I thought, yeah, let me set up my first node here in Queens, because it's only going to get more and more popular, I think. Within the Queens borough itself, Holliswood's in a fantastic spot, because in order to get here, you fly in on the plane, and then you get the bus into the train station, or you can get the train from the other New York boroughs. Now, Holliswood is actually located within really easy commutable distance of that station. You can see it on my screen here. At the moment, you can send your explorer and it will teleport immediately from place to place within the borough. But eventually, Upland are going to introduce real-world travel, which means that all travelling is going to be scaled in terms of the amount of time it takes to get from place to place, even within the same city. So having a nice location quite near the station, that's going to attract a lot of businesses and a lot of people that want to set up their houses there. I've also chosen Holliswood because of the size. It's not the absolute smallest neighbourhood in Queens, but it is one of the smaller ones, and I think it hits that really nice balance between being kind of accessible, that we're not having to pay hundreds of thousands of UPIX right now to get in, but also that there's a realistic possibility that between us we can lock up quite a significant part of Holliswood and start building it up and getting that value to increase really nicely. The ultimate aim of this node is to become the #1 most developed neighbourhood in Queens, with the ultimate objective of being able to spawn a really good collection in the area while maintaining a fun community spirit. That is my goal for Holliswood, and a lot of people have already bought in and everyone's very enthusiastic. I can already feel that amazing community spirit. So if you are also enthusiastic about these aims, I encourage you to get in on Holliswood and help us turn this into the #1 most developed neighbourhood in the borough. Which loops into the next point. How do you get involved? Well, first and foremost, you need to own a property in Holliswood. I know a lot of people are quite UPIX poor at the moment, but if I just quickly zoom in and get a sense for the general prices that people could pay to get in, yeah, we're kind of looking at the mid, like 30,000 which I think is quite accessible. I intentionally made my node in an area which was not a collection because I wanted as many people to be able to get in as possible. Once you've managed to secure a property in Holliswood, I'm going to be running the node from my Club Radish Discord server, which you can see on the screen right now. There's a link in the description as always. Right in here, I'm going to be sharing all of the latest news from the Holliswood node, the latest prices, the number of buildings being developed, any initiatives that I've got going on at the moment. Is all going to be run from the Club Radish Discord server, so you don't have to join loads of different places. It's all going to be nice and central here. I'm going to update this with some key information that I'm sharing in this video. But yeah, if you want to get involved, I strongly suggest joining Club Radish and checking out the Holliswood Queens channel that I've put within the server. So you like what we're going for, you've bought your property and you've joined the Discord. What about when it comes to actually building structures on your property, which is the primary way that a node gains value at the moment? There's a handful of guidelines that I'd like people to follow when it comes to building your properties in Holliswood. I can't enforce these too strictly because ultimately it's your property, you can do what you want. But I would recommend following these guidelines because if enough people follow these rules, new people buying in would rather buy a property that feels like part of the group rather than something which is a bit different. So by following these few guidelines, you benefit the node as a whole and your own personal value of the properties that you're building on. First of all, I want to flag that this is intentionally quite a small neighbourhood that we're building in, so we have to make the properties that we have count. So I'm really enthusiastic about encouraging people to build regular sized townhouses where they can, and I'm going to start off a structure just to show you what I mean. So we've got all of these different buildings here. If you can fit an apartment building or a luxury house, absolutely go for it. But for the vast majority of people building within Holliswood, I encourage you to go for the townhouse because that will give us the most value for the amount of space that you've got to work with. The second piece of guidance is please make sure that your houses are actually facing the street. Usually people get this correct, but I've seen structures built in other neighbourhoods which are for some reason facing away from the street, so please face towards the street. And then once you're in this screen, try to make your property line up with the street. Now this one which I've clicked on is actually a little bit weird because the street curves. So in this scenario, I wouldn't mind if somebody either kind of made their property a little bit angled, so it kind of is lined up with the street, or because this is a bit of an odd one and the street is really quite curved, I don't mind if it's more lined up with the boundaries of the property itself, because this one's a little bit weird. But yeah, and then on that note, I'm not as fussed about whether you make your property really flush up against the street or if it's a little bit further back. There's a few different schools of thought on this. If you place it a bit further back, you'll have a bit more room to place decorative stuff in the front of your house. The only thing which I will ask is that if you've got a neighbour who's already built their structure, please try to line up your houses so they're about an equal distance away from the street. That will benefit the node and it will benefit all of the parties involved having a nice consistent row of houses. So I've got my property here, my regular townhouse. I've pushed it a little bit away from the street so I can have some outdoor decor. I like the position. The only other request from me is in terms of colour scheme. In terms of the primary colour, which is the colour of the house itself, I actually don't mind as much. I originally wanted there to be red houses with green roofs to make them kind of look like radishes, but the red for the primary colour looks more like a pink, so it's not really what I was going for. Plus, you can't have a green roof anyway. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to keep the house colour white, but what I will ask people do, where possible, is to make the secondary colour red. And as you say, this is kind of a pinky colour, but I think it stands out. It has that radish feel the TAR's going for in terms of the branding. And if we see this neighbourhood that has all red roofs, it really stands out from the top, and people will be going, hey, what's the deal? Like, there's clearly a lot of organisation going on in this neighbourhood. I want in. I'm probably going to be making my properties white and red because I think that colour palette works quite well. But regardless, I'd encourage you to select a red roof where possible. So there you go, I'm going to start my construction there. The next thing I wanted to talk about is selling your properties, because ultimately you guys are here to make money, and I don't want to stop you from doing that. As with any node, I encourage you to hold on to your properties and build them up in order to increase the value of the properties and to boost our chances of getting a neighbourhood spawned collection. And in the long term, I genuinely think that you're going to be very happy if you hold on to your properties in Holliswood, because long term I can only see this getting more popular and increasing in value, especially as more and more utility comes into the game, as more ways to boost the value of this neighbourhood. But I'm not introducing a strict commitment system like you may have seen in Century City. For me, this is a longer term project, and I'm not going to be tearing my hair out if the prices rise and people start selling. That's absolutely their decision to make. They're here to make money. That's cool. I'm not going to be obsessively monitoring the floor price in Holliswood, but I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm not going to be selling. I'm going to be slowly increasing my holdings here. I'm going to be steadily building it up and making it, as I say, the best neighbourhood node in Queens. Not because I don't want to make money, but because I genuinely think that in the longer term I'll be better off just increasing my holdings and building them up and making a fantastic neighbourhood than holding on to them for a month or two and then flipping them for, I don't know, 50% profit. That's my stance on selling properties in Holliswood. I'd encourage you not to, for the good of the node and for the long-term benefit of your bank account. But for me, this is a longer-term project, and although I will be reporting on the changing floor price, ultimately I don't mind if it stays steady for a little bit because it gives me more time to accumulate, and I know there's a lot of other people involved in this node who would also be very interested in consolidating the properties within the hands of people who are genuinely enthusiastic about what we're trying to do here in Holliswood and understand the benefits of holding these properties long term. And finally, as with a lot of popular nodes, I find that in order to kick it off, I thought it'd be best if I introduced some incentives to get people building and to start seeing some progress in Holliswood straight away. I personally am quite likely to rent some Spark from the House of Spark. I love it. It's all automated, and it's very, very clever. The people who run it are so helpful. They'll help you get started, and there's lots of guides in here, so you won't have any problems renting your Spark through House of Spark for this. And what I'm doing in terms of incentives is that, at least for now, I'm going to be directly subsidizing the development of houses within Holliswood. Once you've completed a structure in Holliswood, if you let me know on Discord, tell me the type of property that you've built and send me a screenshot, and I will pay you directly the amounts that I'm showing on the screen right now. This is based off the current Spark rental prices of House of Spark. I'm offering about 10 to 15% of the Spark cost as a direct incentive to encourage people to start building here. Spark is already very cheap right now, so with this extra incentive, I genuinely think that it's a really smart decision to benefit from this. I think those are pretty generous incentives. They're not going to be around forever, but I'll give you plenty of warning before they are stopped. So don't be afraid that it's suddenly going to be pulled out from under you. So that's, for me, a complete guide of why Holliswood, how to get involved, what we're all about, selling your properties, renting Spark and incentives. I hope you found that helpful. If you are enthusiastic about making Holliswood the greatest neighbourhood in Queens, and perhaps ultimately the best in New York and the Upland Metaverse itself, I need all of the enthusiastic people I can get buy your properties in Holliswood and post in the Club Radish server that you're taking part. I've already seen so many people on there who are super excited to be getting involved. Thank you so much for all of your enthusiasm, and also thank you very much to my director and executive level channel members, to Shazing, Monopoly Mike, Bad Frog, and Matrigno. Your support means so much to me. If anybody else wants to become a channel member, there's a little button that says join just under this video. And of course, here is the reel of pro level members as well. All of you are so awesome. Thank you so much. That's about it for this video. As I say, thank you so much, everybody who's already taking part and is showing so much enthusiasm for Holliswood Queens. Can't wait to see where this goes. It's going to be a really awesome project to be a part of. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.